This is Project Audion, timeless audio dramas for modern times, created the classic way.
Hello, I'm Larry Groebe, and welcome to another Project Audion original. That's what we're calling our series of newly penned episodes inspired by classic radio shows. We take characters from radio's golden age and set them in new situations, so you'll hear a show that's never been heard before. This time, Robert L. Mills, who earned his living writing for Bob Hope among others, revisits the comedic inspiration from his childhood, Jack Benny. Jack and the gang welcome guest star Jimmy Stewart to the show to send up Alfred Hitchcock's The Man Who Knew Too Much. In addition, Jack gets a letter and a visit from the IRS, and, well, let's just tune in, shall we, to an all-new Audion original of The Jack Benny Show.
The Lucky Strike program starring Jack Benny with Mary Livingston, Phil Harris, Rochester, Dennis Day, the sportsman, and yours truly, Don Wilson. Well, it's that time again for Mr. Benny's weekly violin lesson from Professor LeBlanc, and we find Rochester going through his usual pre-lesson preparations.
Let's see. Chair for Mr. Benny. Chair for Professor LeBlanc. Violin on chair for Mr. Benny. Earplugs on chair for Professor LeBlanc. Oh, and I better lock that window. Last week he tried to jump out.
Oh, Rochester.
I'm in the library, Miss Benny.
Oh, good. I see we're all ready for my violin lesson. What's that telephone doing there?
Professor LeBlanc asked for it, in case he gets a last-minute reprieve from the governor.
Well, next time he can use the payphone in the hall. Where's my music stand? You forgot to set it up.
The professor told me to skip it this week.
Skip it? Why?
He says it just encourages you.
Well, set it up anyway, and when you finish that, start making lunch for the cast. They'll be here to rehearse right after my lesson.
Box lunches with apples as always?
Yes, that'll be fine, Rochester. And remember, only one slice of bologna per sandwich.
Last time I tried that, Mr. Wilson noticed.
Well, this time, hide it under the mustard.
Okay, boss.
And be sure to use up the rest of our Jell-O. Finally getting rid of it. Now I wish I asked for money instead. Well, that must be the professor now. I'll get it. Professor LeBlanc, here I am, all ready for my lesson.
Another prayer gone unanswered.
Professor, what's that Band-Aid on your arm?
The cab driver had to administer a sedative injection to give me enough courage to walk up to the door.
Well, you're here now, and Rochester has everything set up for us in the library.
We musicians refer to that as the scene of the crime.
Come right in, Professor. Follow me. I was checking my violin, and I think I may have a loose string.
One can only hope.
And wait till you hear my Flight of the Bumblebee. I've been practicing.
I hope so. Last week it sounded more like moth attacking light post.
Now I'm ready. Why don't I try some scales first?
Why not? I'm sure they'll get over it. Gently with the bow you're stroking, not an angry bear you're poking. Both your feet are firmly planted, sweet relief will soon be granted.
Oh, darn, there goes that loose string.
Ah, there is a God. My wish, it came true.
Well, I guess that's my lesson for this week, Professor. It's my fault for not checking my strings more frequently.
You'll still pay me for the lesson, won't you?
Yes, of course, Professor. Will you take Jell-O? Rochester, where's that letter I got from the IRS this morning?
Put it in the file with the rest of the bills.
It's not a bill, Rochester. I'm just being audited. I may not have to pay anything.
Oh, you'll have to pay, all right. They find out you've been writing off Mr. Wilson as a dependent, you'll pay.
Anyone who eats 3 box lunches every time we rehearse at my house, I consider a son. Well, that's probably him now. I'll get it.
Hello, Jack.
Son!
Phil's the one who always calls you Dad. What's this all about anyway?
Mr. Benny got a letter from the IRS, and you're part of his new family for tax purposes.
Quiet, Rochester. I'm sure it's nothing, Don. Purely routine. I'm just being audited.
Oh, is that all? I'm sure your tax accountant will take care of it for you.
Tax accountant?
Surely you have someone to help you prepare your tax return.
Oh, yes, of course. I have plenty of help.
With my 10 fingers and his 10 fingers, we're as good as Price and Waterhouse.
Jack, don't tell me you and Rochester fill out all those forms by yourselves.
Of course not. We have them checked over by a professional.
A professional?
Cousin Leroy, who keeps the books in my uncle's grocery store.
Well, if you need more help with the IRS, be sure to let me know. I've got a great tax man. He finds deductions I didn't even know I had.
Deductions?
Yeah, like those rehearsal box lunches you charge us for.
Better start looking for a parking space, Rochester. I think that's the federal building just ahead.
I'll start dragging my foot.
Pull in here, Rochester. You think this space is big enough?
There's plenty of room. We just lost our rear bumper back there.
This shouldn't take long. Wait for me here so we don't get a ticket.
Hey, boss. Think I'll walk back and look for that bumper.
Da-da-da-da-dum, da-da-da-dum, da-dum. There's the Federal Bureau of Investigation. The Armed Services Recruiting Office. Gee, I wonder if... Nah, I already served. The Social Security Administration. Ah, here it is. Internal Revenue Service. That looks like a free examiner over there. Excuse me, sir. Is this where the income tax audits are conducted?
Well, we're not conducting the L.A. Philharmonic.
My name is Jack Bennett, and I...
Oh, wait, don't tell me. You got one of our invitations to drop by for a friendly chat.
Yes, I did, but I'm sure it's just routine.
Oh, yes, that's exactly what Al Capone said. And you see where it got him.
My first audit, and I have to get a comedian.
Tell me, Mr. Benny, is it? Did you bring along your latest return?
Yes, I did. Here it is.
Says here you derive most of your income from your radio show.
Yes, we're on once a week. Maybe you've heard it.
Oh, now that you mention it, I think I have.
And?
Frankly, I'm surprised they pay you anything.
My show is highly rated. You don't have to believe me. Just ask my sponsor, Lucky Strike. Come on in, boys. Meet my tax advisors. Round, firm, fully packed, and legally.
Check out that third one from the left. He looks a little shifty. Now, Mr. Benny, let's take a closer look at these medical deductions, shall we? Now, you claim medical expenses for an employee named Philip Harris. And tell me, what were these for?
Well, he takes so much time off nursing hangovers, I thought that was close enough.
$860 seems a little excessive for medications.
Well, they had to be 90 proof.
I see. Oh, and also you list cosmetic surgery for Mr. Harris.
Yes, I also pay his dermatologist.
And just why does Mr. Harris need a dermatologist?
He has his dimples re-drilled every year.
Oh, well, yes, I remember now. Oh, he's the taxpayer who tried to have his dimples trademarked.
He also tried to patent his curls.
Yes, and I see that you've written your living room as a place of business. And tell me, what kind of business do you conduct there?
A restaurant.
What kind of a restaurant?
I serve lunch once a week for the cast of my show.
And you list the name of your restaurant as Chasen's East?
Yes, they gave me permission, since I buy the boxes the lunches are served in with their name printed on the cover.
And you claim to employ a part-time chef by the name of Rochester Van Jones.
Yes, he's also my valet.
Your valet? And he cooks for you too?
Well, yes. You see, he's the only one in my house who knows where the kitchen is.
Yes, he's also listed here as your chauffeur.
Yes, he drives my Maxwell.
I see here you're writing off that vehicle as a business deduction.
Yes, those are expenses incurred by my vintage auto museum, Jack's Classics.
Jack's Classics?
Once a week, I open my garage to the public. The deluxe tour comes with a box lunch.
Well, Mr. Benny, all of your schedules seem to be in order, and our accountants have determined that your return was only a few dollars short.
Short?
Yes, but don't worry. Only a small penalty, and that's already been paid.
Paid? Who paid it?
Oh, your son, Donald.
Rochester, did you remind Dennis that rehearsal was this afternoon?
Yes, boss. He said he may be a little late.
That crazy kid always has an excuse. What was it this time?
He has to stop by the drugstore to buy a Mother's Day card.
Mother's Day was months ago.
I told him that, but he said for him every day is Mother's Day.
Oh, hello, Phil.
Sorry I'm late, Jackson. I was busy rounding up the band.
What were they celebrating this time?
Once a year, Jim Beam, Jack Daniels, and Johnny Walker have birthdays in the same week, and that's a good enough excuse.
I'm a little late too, Jack.
Oh, hi, Livy. What was your excuse?
Oh, I got a letter from my mother, and I had to drop off my answer at the post office.
Another letter, huh? Did she...
Listen to the show last week? Yes, she did.
And
she thinks I should be given more lines.
More lines? How many lines does she think you should have?
Enough to get paid.
Great. Now she's an agent, too. Did she say anything else about the show?
Yeah, she thinks you should play your violin more often.
Play my violin more often?
Well, that's what she said. And my sister, Babe, agrees with her.
Your sister, Babe.
Oh, they both think it would encourage more parents to give their children music lessons.
Music lessons? Music lessons? Me? Inspiring kids all over the country to take violin lessons?
No, piano lessons.
Everybody's a music critic. Listen up, everyone. I'm very excited to have Jimmy Stewart on the show for the first time.
Jimmy Stewart? Why hasn't he been on before now, Jackson?
Well, I kept inviting him, but he talked so slow, by the time he answered, we were off for the summer. Well, that's probably him now. I'll get it. Jimmy Stewart.
Hello, Jack.
Come in. Come in. I'm so happy to have you on our show at last.
Well, that goes for me as well. I've been standing there since last summer.
And all this time, I thought you were the mailman.
I'm kidding, Jack. But I look forward to being on the show.
Well, we're all here, and we know how busy you are filming your latest movie.
It's called Vertigo. Just finished shooting some scenes with Hitch at the top of a church steeple.
Oh, I got dizzy just hiding in the choir loft.
What are you doing here, Dennis? You're supposed to be picking out a Mother's Day card.
Oh, they were out of them, so I bought her a birthday card instead.
It's her birthday, too?
Oh, no, that's in September.
September? You're 7 months too early.
No, I'm 5 months late. I forgot to give her one last time.
Well, I was just about to tell Jimmy we're doing a takeoff on his hit movie, The Man Who Knew Too Much.
Oh, hello, Mr. Stewart.
Hello, Dennis. And please, call me Jim.
Well, you're my mother's favorite actor. Why, ever since she saw Rear Window, she sleeps with the shades down.
Tell her I'm sorry we scared her.
I haven't slept at all. You know, and our dog keeps digging up in the backyard.
Well, kids, since we're all here, we can rehearse The Man Who Knew Too Much. Which reminds me, Dennis, do you know what song you're singing?
Oh, yes, and it's guaranteed to steal your heart away.
Well, I hope you plan to give it back.
Oh, an Irishman will steal your heart away. He'll bedevil you and beguile you with his hullabaloo ballet. When that rogue turns on the brogue, your heart will go astray. Oh, an Irishman will steal your heart away. An Englishman has manners, an Englishman has charm. They say it's truly difficult to ruffle his aplomb. He'll hold you and he'll kiss you, but wherever he may be, at 4 o'clock he'll have to stop to sip a cup of tea. But an Irishman will steal your heart away. He'll bedevil you and beguile you with his hullabaloo ballet. When the rogue turns on the brogue, your heart will go astray. Oh, an Irishman will steal your heart away.
That was wonderful, Dennis, as always. And now, ladies and gentlemen, our version of the Alfred Hitchcock classic, The Man Who Knew Too Much. Play, Phil. My name is Chief Inspector John Buchanan of Scotland Yard. I've been a police officer for many years. As a matter of fact, I go so far back with Scotland Yard. When I first started, it was a patio. My most interesting case involved innocent American tourists, Dr. Ben McKenna and his wife Jo from Indianapolis, Indiana, who, through no fault of their own, stumbled into a sordid world of international intrigue and murder. When it was all over, I questioned them at length. So, Dr. McKenna, tell me how it all began.
Well, we were vacationing in French Morocco. My wife, Jo, here, is an internationally known vocalist.
I'm well aware of that. In fact, I have your top-selling record, Mrs. McKenna, 3 Little Fishies.
Why, thank you, Inspector. Oh, it's from my Academy Award-winning movie, Minnie the Goldfish.
I love that film.
She also starred in the sequel, Minnie Takes Manhattan. She was wearing those mermaid fins around the house for weeks.
Well, I always wondered how you managed to walk on that tail.
Balance, Inspector, balance. My ballet training finally paid off.
Well, getting back to your bus trip, Dr. McKenna.
Well, we were both watching our 8-year-old son, Hank, enjoying the sights on his first trip out of the United States, on a bus from Casablanca, jam-packed with local peasants. Saints alive, I swear this driver is bound and determined to hit every pothole between here and Marrakesh.
Oh, honey, this is your first vacation away from the office in 20 years. Why don't you just try to relax and enjoy it?
Well, how can I when everybody keeps asking me for medical advice?
Well, maybe if you wore a necktie instead of that stethoscope around your neck.
Oh, yeah. I'm just trying to make a fashion statement.
Oh, it does that all right. It says, prescribe something. Would you please tell Hank to stop bothering those people? He shouldn't keep running up and down the aisle like that.
Why, he's just a typical 8-year-old having fun, honey. Hank, leave the nice man alone and put that cobra back in his basket.
Gee, Dad, can't I keep him? Can I? Please?
Not a chance, Hank. He'd probably eat Fluffy. And you know how you love that kitty.
Well, okay. Here, mister. Sorry I bothered you. So long, Slithers.
It's fine.
Perhaps I can help. My name is Louis Bernard, and I speak fluent French. Plus, I'm handsome, so these peasants believe anything I say. I'll explain that the boy meant no harm.
That would be very helpful, Mr. Bernard.
Les Américains sont infidèles. For he forgives you, Hank, completely. Doctor, better yet, so does his cobra.
Well, we can't thank you enough. I'm Dr. McKenna, and this is my wife, Jo.
Pleased to meet you, Mr. Bernard. And what do you do?
Oh, little bit of this, little of that, mostly that. But enough about me. Please allow me to take you to dinner tonight. I know the best restaurants in America.
So that's how we met Louis Bernard, whom Jo mistrusted right from the start.
And why was that, Mrs. McKenna?
Well, to me, a little of this and a little of that didn't sound like much of a job.
I don't know about that. At Oxford, I majored in a little of this, and minored in a little of that, and I've done all right. But you're right to be suspicious. We had Bernard under surveillance for some time. That snake charmer on the bus was working for us undercover. The Cobra was also a trained operative.
Wow! Now I know how the British cracked the Enigma code.
So tell me, did you take Mr. Bernard up on this dinner offer?
Well, yes. But while we were having drinks in his hotel suite, a dissipated-looking visitor claimed he had knocked on the door by mistake.
Dissipated?
Well, he looked like he hadn't taken very good care of himself. His eyes were bloodshot, and his skin was pale, and I immediately diagnosed an iron deficiency. My patients, they
As soon as Bernard saw him, he canceled our dinner, which I thought was odd.
Could have been much worse. if he waited until you finished your meal and then claimed he forgot his wallet.
Gee, you're right. I never thought of that.
Well, most people wouldn't, but it's my job to think like that. So, what did you do next?
We decided to have dinner instead with a friendly middle-aged British couple we met at the hotel, the Draytons. Mr. Drayton said he was in soil management with the World Farming Bureau, which we had never heard of.
During dinner, they offered to take us on a tour of the famous Marrakesh marketplace the next day.
Which, at the time, we both thought was a fine idea. Oh, thanks so much for the tour, Mr. Drayton. Hank is having a ball watching all these talented performers.
They bring out the child in all of us, Mrs. McKenna. Lucy and I have been coming here for so long, we're on our 5th sword swallower.
Frankly, those fellows make me a little nervous. Reminds me too much of do-it-yourself surgery.
Here comes Hank now, and he's really excited about something. Oh boy! Oh boy! I just watched 3 acrobats balanced on top of an elephant who was standing on one leg. Then some Irish guy showed up and sang Clancy Lowered the Boom.
That would be Dennis. He's always missing his song cue.
Tell me, Hank, what's it like having a mother who's also a world-famous vocalist? Oh, I like it just fine, Mrs. Drayton. Sometimes she sings Little Fishies. They help me fall asleep.
One-hit record hardly makes me world famous, Mrs. Drayton. Now I'm just an ordinary housewife, married to a very busy doctor.
Who's busy building a practice big enough to allow his wife to get back to making more hit records. Why, in less than a month, I'm moving to a larger... hey, what's going on over there?
Where?
Like the police are chasing someone. That often happens when somebody grabs something from a booth and makes a run for it.
Indeed, you'll get used to it after a while.
They're coming this way.
Hey, neat! They have their guns drawn and everything, just like in a movie.
The man they were chasing seemed to single me out of the crowd.
Single you out? Did you recognize him?
Oh, not then. No. He was dressed all in white, like Lawrence of Arabia, and I remember his sandals.
Sandals? Was there something unusual about them?
Oh, not really. But they reminded me of the ones I wore during my hippie phase in college. Funny what you remember.
Did the man attack you?
Actually, he reached out for my hand to help him. With his other hand, he was trying to remove the large knife sticking out of his back. Had a pearl handle. Pearl handle, as I recall, or maybe it was ivory.
Was it Louis Bernard?
Oh, yes. I recognized him when some of his makeup rubbed off. Then he pulled me close and whispered something in my ear.
He said something? Did you write it down?
Well, yes, it did, but you know how we doctors write. I think it was something like London, Ambrose Chapel, check him. It was about then I decided he wasn't going to make it. Of course, he was entitled to get a second opinion. As a general rule, I allow all my patients.
What happened then, Dr. McKenna?
Well, we were detained by the local authorities for questioning. They were in such a hurry, even before I could notify Bernard's next of kin, we were taken down to headquarters.
Standard procedure.
I had just been seated when another officer called me to the phone. It was Mrs. Drayton, and she said if I told the authorities when the dead man had whispered, or what he'd whispered, we'd never see Hank again.
Was he kidnapped?
Can you believe it? I don't know if you have kids, Inspector, but it's getting almost impossible to find a good babysitter these days. I was beginning to think that our friend Mrs. Drayton might be hiding something.
Like hatching a plot to assassinate a visiting prime minister during a concert at the Royal Albert Hall, perhaps?
Exactly what we suspected, too.
Amazing. If you two ever move to the UK, we have a job for you at the Yard.
Well, right then, I decided if I was going to save Hank, I'd better find this Ambrose Chapel fella fast.
We figured maybe he was listed in the telephone book. And sure enough, there he was, right there in Soho. Ambrose Chapel.
Taxidermy. Hello? Anybody here? I'm looking for a man named Ambrose Chapel.
Be right with you. I'm just finishing up this duck-billed platypus.
Standing there, I felt like I was in a jungle. There were stuffed animals from floor to ceiling, a lion's head, moose, deer, buffalo head, an elk, birds of all species. There were small varmints, a fox, a crouching coyote, all so lifelike it sent a shudder down my spine.
So sorry about the delay. Roadkill restoration. Now, what can I help you with, Mr.
Dr. McKenna. I got your name from someone in Marrakesh named Louis Bernard.
Louis Bernard, you say?
He whispered it to me just before he died with a knife in his back.
Rodney, dial the police, would you, like a good lad?
No, please hear me out. A man is dead. There's something very mysterious going on here, and I aim to find out what it is.
Oh, and Rodney, tell them to bring the net and the tranquilizer gun.
Why didn't you call us, Dr. McKenna? You could have avoided all this trouble.
We didn't want to put Hank in further jeopardy. Besides, while Ben was gone, I did some checking and concluded that Ambrose Chapel might not be a person at all, but a place.
Yes, we know that the Draytons, posing as clerics, went there to deliver the assassin's final instructions. He was told to take his fatal shot that evening at a concert at the Royal Albert Hall during the climatic cymbal crash, so no one would ever hear the gun.
Luckily, we were at the concert, and I recognized him from that night at Louis Bernard's hotel suite. It was too late to warn anyone, so as I watched him aim his pistol...
The assassin fell to his death in the mezzanine while trying to escape, and the ambassador was only wounded. You saved his life, Mrs. McKenna.
Oh, thanks, Inspector.
Joe is used to being heard in the back row. It's a well-known fact that singers must be able to...
The next night, we were invited to the embassy reception for the ambassador, where I was asked to sing Three Little Fishies.
We knew Hank could whistle that tune in his sleep, so we figured if he was somewhere in the building, as we suspected, he'd answer.
And this time you let us know in advance, so we were able to assign undercover agents to cover the reception, rescue the boy, and charge the Draytons with espionage and attempted murder.
Yes, great work, Inspector, but I have one last question.
What's that, Doctor?
If they're sentenced to the gallows, do you think this Ambrose Chapel would stuff them for us?
The Jack Benny program was created by Sam Perrin, Milt Josephberg, George Balzer, John Tackaberry, Al Gordon, and Hal Goodman, and written by Robert L. Mills. It's produced and transcribed by Hilliard Marks, and is heard by our armed forces overseas through the facilities of the Armed Forces Radio Service. James Stewart appeared through the courtesy of Universal Pictures, producer of The Spirit of St. Louis, currently showing in a theater near you. This is NBC, the national broadcasting company.
Well, thank you for listening to this Project Audion original. Our cast included John Bell in Alabama, Scott McKinley in New Jersey, Angela Young in Florida, Paul Patterson in Georgia, Pete LUTZ in Texas, Bob Beaumont in California, Rachel Pulliam in Missouri, and Ken Jeffries in California. The show was written by Robert L. Mills in sunny California and was produced and directed by yours truly from Texas. If you enjoyed this, we have many more terrific recreated vintage audio drama classics on our podcast and YouTube channel. Check them out, then like them, comment on them, and share them with your friends. And until next time, thanks for listening.
Oh, yes, but don't worry, there was only a small penalty, and that's already been paid.
Paid? Who paid it?
Oh, your son, Dennis, Donald.
Golly, everybody paid it.
Hold on. Okay, let's pick it back up at the same line.